verses 1 to 11. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem, in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
When I am watching a TV drama, what I do love, is a flashback. Do you love a flashback? So like the drama starts and some like incredible situation is unfolding. And you think, how did we get there? How did we get to that? And then 2 weeks earlier, and everything is normal. And that's how the drama plays out towards this amazing conclusion. Well, this book that Gerald's just read, some of us from, Matthew's Gospel, it's a record of Jesus' life. It ends, we haven't read it today because we're thinking about the start of the story, but it ends with Jesus, the main character, saying one of the most outrageous things that anybody has ever said. Jesus ends Matthew 28 by saying this. He says, "All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me." Just say that again. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. I mean, that is quite a claim, isn't it? For one person to make. All the authority that there is, that you can see, or that you can't see, I, Jesus Christ, who was born in the nation of Israel 2,000 years ago, I have authority over all of that. It's been given to me. Therefore, he says to his first followers, make disciples of me in every nation of the world. I mean, we can hardly believe that in our day and age. It's so imperialistic. How can he say, go into all of these other nations and stop them believing what they already believe and get them to believe in me instead? And those first Christians, they did actually go and do it. They went and made disciples of Jesus to the ends of the earth. Hence we are here today. So that's the end of the story. But here we are at the beginning of the story at Christmas, thinking about the start of Jesus' life, 33 or so years before that. How did it start? If it ends with him claiming and people believing him that all authority in heaven and earth has been given to him, how did it start? One of the features of the start of his story is that these very strange people appear. These characters, the Magi, which almost certainly means practicers of magic. We call them wise men, as the closest sort of translation we can get. They sweep in at the start of Matthew's Gospel, they behave extremely oddly, and then they sweep out, and we never hear anything of them again in the Gospel. You would think if you were writing this, they'd make good characters in a novel. Like, why just have them in an art in chapter 2? They distribute gifts of unimaginable value to a presumably quite surprised peasant woman and her child, and then they're gone. I just like imagining the scene when one of them gets home to his family. Did you come home a different way, love? Oh yes, we did. We were warned to do that in a dream. Interesting. Where were you when you had this dream? Well, we were in Bethlehem. It's a little insignificant place between 400 and 1,000 miles from here. That's quite a distance by camel. What were you doing there in that insignificant place? Oh, we went there to worship a baby. Right. We also, while we were there, wanted to pass on the majority of our life savings to that family. You know, some of the gold we have stacked up to honour kings, some of the frankincense we use in our temple to worship God, some of the expensive myrrh perfume you put in dead bodies, we give all that away. I can just think of Mrs. Wiseman saying, this story isn't getting any clearer to me. You went to this backwater, you gave away our life savings, you were worshipping a baby. Why? Oh, sorry, did I not explain that? We were following a star. This old religious book told us this baby would be born in Bethlehem, and a star appeared and led us there. What does that even mean? Because I never see stars move. Presumably not a prehistoric satellite. Now, some of us will have heard this story many times, but for some of us it will be new. I guess many of us are used to this story because of years of nativity plays. Unwilling 6-year-olds dressed in the year 2 teacher's best stereotype of an Eastern costume, shoved onto stage, holding a gift. But the truth is, this story of stargazers from the east coming in, worshipping, dropping off ridiculous wealth, and dreaming up their route home is extremely strange. But really, all of Christmas is strange. If you are British, which I know many people here are not, but if you are, for us it's the epitome of an establishment festival. Everyone celebrates Christmas. It's the only day of the year when every single thing is shut. Everything is decked with light and happiness and the comforting smells of mulled wine and turkey. But did you notice, as we had the reading read to us, the establishment of Jesus' time were not at all happy about the birth of this child. Herod was very upset, and it says all of Jerusalem with him, all of the people who ruled and were important, when they heard about the birth of this child, they were extremely disturbed. Think Parliament and Westminster Abbey. In those places, people were deeply troubled by the birth of this child. They saw this helpless child as a threat. So while you may be used to Christmas, this story says it's much stranger than we think. The arrival of this baby welcomes strange and odd and faraway people who behave very strangely indeed, but it threatens those who are in power and who have influence and respect. Jesus was doing that even before he could speak, threatening those committed to ruling themselves, unsettling people who have the power to make their own choices. From the moment he was born, he did that, and he did it throughout his life on earth. He's still today offering a different regime that threatens people with influence, people who are religious, people who think they are good and moral, who think they know God already, find Jesus very threatening. But contrast the wise men, the magicians, the occult practitioners, which is probably what they were. They had their own pagan religion. Ethnically and in their tradition, they had no right to expect a welcome from the God of the Jewish people, and yet they seek out and worship Jesus. Right here in this first story, before he could move, Jesus is setting a pattern for the life and message he is going to share. People think, I am this type of person, I have a religion, Jesus is nothing to do with me. Or we think, well, if there is a God and he's there, he wants me to tidy myself up, to get better, to become a bit more mainstream before I come towards him. Well, last week we saw Jesus is God with us. And the first impact, the very first impact he has on the world is to draw people who have their own beliefs, who have a totally different culture, who look pretty dodgy, to be honest, to draw those people to worship him. And weird stuff goes on around him, moving stars, written down prophecy. The whole thing is saying, God is making this happen. It's not a fluke that these men stumbled on Bethlehem. God is planning for these type of people to worship his son. Maybe you are here today from another country and you view Britain as a Christian country or a more Christian country than from where you come from. There's a whole debate about that. Let's not get into it now. But what you might perceive when we offer you Jesus is us saying, become a bit more British. Happily, we have something better to offer than that. We are not saying you need to become British. No, we are saying you from your culture, like these men, should change your beliefs about God and worship Jesus. It sounds so politically incorrect, but it is what Jesus always says. Maybe you come here today with very set beliefs about God and the world and everything else. And we're very happy to discuss and debate those. We do lots of that here. But listen, in the end, wherever you're from, we're calling you, welcoming you to worship Jesus. And maybe you consider yourself somehow beyond the pale. You're too bad, you're too far away, you're too weak, too strange, too stupid. You're wandering cluelessly around the world like these men. God is not saying tidy yourself up before you come. Come now and worship his son, Jesus. Now, just to be clear what we mean by worship, there's no record of the wise men singing to Jesus. It's a strange word, isn't it? And that's why I slightly embarrassed the kids by telling them to do it, knowing they wouldn't know what to do. What does it mean they worshipped him? Well, at the very least what they did was they gave Jesus some pretty expensive stuff. They said, he is more important than me. I'm ready to give what is most valuable to me to him. What I have is his now. It's almost a ridiculous picture of these grown men throwing themselves down before a baby. But that is what it means to worship him, and that is the call that he's making today. The call he was making before he could say anything at all. He was saying anyone can worship the real God through him, but what that looks like is giving up your life to him. That's what these strange figures are teaching us. You, reader, listener, yes you, wherever you're from, whatever you believe already, you are called to worship Jesus. I consider myself a beneficiary of that promise. I'm not Jewish. I don't speak Hebrew. I've never been to Israel. I am a beneficiary of the truth dramatically enacted in this story. The gospel even includes white Anglo-Saxon men. Everyone is called to worship Jesus. Recently, I took my daughters to see the film Wicked. Mixed feelings, but we can discuss that later. I'm not sure you should make a 3-hour film that's still only half the musical. Anyway, there's a lovely bit, my favourite bit in that film is where Glinda, who's the sort of pretty nice one, and Elphaba, who's green, they've been at loggerheads, but they become friends. They become good friends. And Glinda says this, Elfie, now that we're friends, I'm going to make you my new project. Elphaba says, You really don't have to do that. Glinda says, I know. That's what makes me so nice. Do you see what's going on there? She's pretending to be generous, I'll make you my new project, but really what it's about, it's for me. Proving my niceness. And maybe you feel a bit like that about what I've said so far about Jesus. Isn't it nice of Jesus to say, anyone can come and worship me? Wow, what a generous offer. Can you imagine if I'd done that about me today? Stood up at the front and say, hey everyone, new message for Christmas. If you want to, you can worship me. I'm Mr. Generous like that. Feel free, get all your expensive stuff and bring it to me. It's my Christmas gift to you. You can worship me today. It is strange, isn't it? Why would anybody want to worship this baby? Well, you saw the story acted out by Kate, you heard it read to us by Jericho. You remember, we meet another king first, Herod. They go to find him, and as I said, next week we're going to discover he's a bit of a piece of work. And they discover in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that the baby, God's king, is going to be born in Bethlehem. And Herod hatches a cunning plan. He says, you go and find him, and when you do, let me know so that I can worship him too. The book that Herod read with the wise men predicting Jesus' birth, I wonder, did you notice as it was read? The book predicted Jesus would be an extremely different ruler from Herod. It's what it says about him, this king who will come, a ruler who will shepherd my people. Now we're going to discover that was not Herod the king. He was a ruler who was willing to dominate and to crush and to manipulate for his own gain. And let's be honest, most of the people who claim authority over us, who try and change us, who try and get us to do what they want them to do, most of them are like Herod. Most of them are in it for what they can get. That's why they want power over us. They like telling people what to do. They like being in control. They enjoy being king. Perhaps that's why these wise men were so interested in this baby. Because the prophecy about him says he's a ruler who is not interested in protecting his own power, but in loving and serving other people. He's a shepherd king. The readings and carols that we've sung today include the claim that Jesus is the God who made everything. He is the ruler of the world. All authority in heaven and earth does belong to him because he made it all. This baby who was born was the maker of everything we know, becoming a human being. The Magi, the wise men, they recognized that by giving him gold as a gift for a king. And saying, yeah, we get somehow, you're the promised ruler over everything the Bible promised. And they also got that he was God. They gave him frankincense. That was something that was borrowed, maybe even stolen, from temples. Places where their strange world, they worshipped God, where they reached for the divine, and they took some of that and they gave it to Jesus. The Magi got that. He was a ruler, and he was God. But how did the real God introduce himself? Not the way kings usually do. There was no thunder and lightning, no parades, no fanfares, no establishment rallying round. He entered life as a weak, helpless, crying baby in a forgotten corner of the world. A corner of the world that's actually only really famous today because of him. Why did he do that? Because he is a ruler, and he is God, but he's there to shepherd his people. The God who is real, who made everything, he is nothing like the rulers we currently know. He is not like the politicians who we suspect support campaigns to ruin our economy for their own personal gain. He's not like the leaders who stir up hatred to advance their own cause. Not like all the people advertising to me at Christmas, manipulating my desires in order to make money for themselves. This ruler, the God, the real God who visited the world, this ruler is a shepherd. Well, there are shepherds in the Christmas story. We haven't read about them today. But the truth about shepherds was they were nothing like kings. They were poor, they stank, they lived away from everybody else, in fields watching over their flocks at night, so we read. And they had to do that because they had to put the interests of their sheep before their own interests. They were human, and sheep were sheep. But if one was lost, they had to go and find it. If one was attacked, they had to go and defend it. A good shepherd might even get killed for his sheep. We don't know many rulers like that. Certainly our own desires rarely lead us to what is best for us, and other people's don't either. But here is the promise of a shepherd ruler. Someone who really is God, who really made everything living among us. One who really does have the right to claim rule over every single person, all authority in heaven and earth. And yet, he uses his power and glory and majesty to shepherd and care for and give himself for others. There is nothing more foolish looking than what I made those children do to the dog a few minutes ago. Even more ridiculous when it was actual adults bowing down to worship a baby. These were grown men with a rough nomadic lifestyle, bowing down to worship a child and give him the most outrageously valuable things that they had. But listen, there are grown men and women here in this church today who will happily tell you everything I have belongs to Jesus. I am happy to see his glory and his beauty and his godness and worship him. Christians are those ridiculous people. Why would anyone choose that? Well, who knew what these strange people knew about Jesus? They go in and out of the story in their smelly, wealthy air of mystery. But they knew something. That third gift they gave, myrrh, was an expensive perfume. But people from the East most often used it on dead bodies. What a strange gift to give a small child. A gift that reminds them of their inevitable death. I mean, it is true that every child who is born faces that eventually, but an odd time to bring it up at their birth. About 10 years ago, me and my wife had twins, which brought down on us a shower of generosity, or perhaps sympathy, from everyone that we knew. We got a lot of gifts and a lot of help from people who cared about us. But we did not receive any toy coffins. None of the cuddly toys for our twins were undertakers. None of the toy cars were hearses. And yet these men bring this young child a gift that says he is a ruler, a gift that says he is God, and a gift that says he's going to die. They get, he's a shepherd king, and a good shepherd will lay down his life for his sheep. Jesus spent his whole life welcoming all sorts of people we would never have considered the type. But he himself seemed to think that dying would be the most significant thing that he did. In this biography of Jesus, Matthew's Gospel, half of the book is about the lead up to his death. Many of us are obsessed with what we'll achieve in our lives. Jesus was obsessed with what he would achieve by dying. Because the truth is, all of us are sheep. We wander about helplessly like sheep, ruled by any old person strong enough to tell us what to do. And that's because we have a broken relationship with a real ruler, the God who made us. And Jesus, the God who made us, the true ruler of everything, wanted to break the power of those wrong rulers and welcome anyone who wants to come back to knowing the God we were made for, the God who knows us and loves us and cared for us. So he didn't just lower himself to identify with the weak and the insignificant strangers. He chose death to take all of their alienation and wrongness and broken relationship with God onto himself. He became a person so he could stand in place of people who needed a shepherd to do that for them. What did the wise men know? We can't really tell, but they had a sense that this King, God, shepherd baby would do his work by dying. Since then, Christmas has never been forgotten. It has never been eclipsed. Because it was the God who made us, seeing our hopeless, sheep-like wandering, breaking the power of the rulers that exploit us, that hurt us, and bringing us under the rule of the one who gave everything he had for us. And that baby, born to die, can still do that for you today. I guess there may be people here today who just want to march on in the common myth, the establishment line that most people believe, that we rule ourselves, that we choose to live doing what we want. However clear it becomes, that's not true. And for you, if you like the establishment line, that we all just decide how to live by ourselves, Christmas is a big warning to you, very unsettling like it was for Herod, because it says, no, there's a real ruler out there, and it's not you. But there are other people I know who who need a shepherd king, who see that God, the God who made us, is so committed to us, he became one of us. So committed to welcoming all, he became a low, weak person. So determined to rule for you, that he died in your place. Maybe you know it's time to lay down your arms, to give up on the hopeless myth of self-rule, and happily submit to the King who shepherds us. We've thought about these strange people who come in and out of the story. They come from a strange place. They discovered Jesus by stargazing, something, if you read the Bible, good religious people were not actually supposed to do. And they're here in this story for the people who are thinking, yes, all sounds okay to me, but I'm not really the religious type. Matthew features the Magi from their strange world and their dodgy practices as a walk-on part to convince you. To convince you that the people that you think, oh, they would never want to come to anything, are exactly the people Jesus came for. People that you think, oh, they already are very settled in their own beliefs, is exactly the people Jesus is offering the chance to worship him. Jesus is enough to welcome anyone, which is why these misfits are allowed to wander through his story. If you want a shepherd ruler, or someone you know needs a shepherd ruler, don't keep them away. Don't say they're no for them for that reason, that they seem too far away. Jesus was calling people like that before he could even speak. You see, Matthew has set up the end of the story. All authority is given to Jesus. Everyone should become a disciple of Jesus, but the authority is that of a shepherd for lost sheep, a caring ruler for people who need help. And if that is what you would like, why not take the opportunity to ask him for that right now? Let's pray.